here yet today. Our next question is with transportation. After 3 years and 10 extensions, Congress passed a 2-year federal authorization bill, moving ahead for progress in the 21st century, MAP 21. It maintains current federal funding levels and continues the federal gas tax through fiscal year 2016. What role does the federal government play in future transportation funding, and how would you fund Colorado's rapidly deteriorating infrastructure? We're going to start again with District 7, this time Mr. Coors.
This is a complicated issue, made it even more complicated by a recent mandate by the current administration to double the mileage requirements that you get on a car from 28 to 56 in round numbers. Now, what happens in a deal like that is that the Federal Highway Tax Trust Fund is robbed of the monies that would normally go into that by people that pay taxes in the gas taxes. The other side of that equation is clean air. The United States has done a really good job with greenhouse emissions. In fact, we are at a level of approaching the 1980s in terms of our greenhouse emissions. So with respect to transportation, we need to look at ways to solve buildings and roads, and Colorado relies on tourism. We don't have good roads and good infrastructure here in Colorado. People won't come. So it's kind of a catch-22. But in terms of transportation, I think Colorado stands at the forefront of technology to convert from oil-based transportation to natural gas. Natural gas burns cleaner, it's better for the environment, and it's a whole lot less expensive. But we have to deal with it. We make that transfer from one technology to another, we have to address the gas tax issue. And that'll be something I will look forward to, going back to Washington, D.C., sitting across the table and talking about the options to replenish our tax highway trust fund, which is already borrowing money from the general fund, and we'll need to pay it back over time. So those are the things I'm looking forward to going back to Washington, D.C. to talk about. Thank you.
Thanks. On this question, let's just start with the transportation bill. It is a bill that only extends out 2 years. Normally we would do 6 years, and it's a shame that we ran into a logjam. There are a lot of logjams in the Congress, and this should not have been one of them, just extending it 2 years. For those that are in the construction business, in the paving business, you need to have planning horizons that are longer than 2 years. But luckily we did get 2 years. I can tell you that Mr. Gardner and I had a proposal to the Congress, to Democratic leadership and Republican leadership, to move it forward, looking to have a longer period of time for the transportation bill, and it included the wind energy tax credit, so that companies like Vestas right here in this area could continue to build their manufacturing base, and it also had the Keystone Pipeline as a component to reach an accord between Democrats and Republicans. Ultimately, neither of those were part of it, but it was an effort to move this forward, have a longer transportation bill than just 2 years. Now, with respect to how do we pay for this infrastructure, because we have to have this infrastructure. These are long-term investments, again, going back to our globally competitive approach that we want to take. Well, my opponent I just was listening to him. He wants to first start with the gas tax. I think that's the wrong place to start. We start with tax cuts that the George Bush administration put into place that really benefit millionaires and billionaires. That's the first place we should start with, enhancing revenue so that we can build out our infrastructure and our investments over a long period of time. So instead of focusing just on the ordinary person and raising their gas tax, we ought to focus on tax cuts for the wealthiest in this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman. 1 minute rebuttal. We'll start with Mr. Coors. And I know Congressman Perlmutter criticized you for the gas tax, if you want to talk about that.
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask if there's another issue that we could talk about taxes, but let me just point out to the audience that his idea of taxing the rich, even according to Obama's plan, only had 8 days of revenue to the coffers, hardly a significant amount. And what's he going to do with money? But they're just going to spend it. But probably more importantly, folks, Ernst & Young issued a study that said if these tax rates are allowed to expire, it's going to affect 1 million small businesses in the United States negatively and probably cost anywhere from 700,000 jobs to up to 1.5 million jobs in the United States with this tax. Because who's going to pay the additional taxes? Those rich and famous people are going to pay them. And to what extent? To the extent of eliminating much needed jobs in this country. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Coors.
2 points. Joe embraces the Romney Ryan plan, which adds $5 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years. And that is just bad for America. Second point, came up a couple of times, there is one of the ways to handle the transportation needs are through public-private partnerships. And we see that on a couple of our transit lines, the Gold Line in Arvada, and then the one in Aurora with Kiewit. And so, as a member of Congress, I'm going to encourage those kinds of public-private partnerships so that we can, one, build out the transit line up north here into this area, as well as find other ways to really make our transportation system work. Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Congressman.